Okay guys, here we go. We're finally going to do it, the historical accounting deep dive. Before I dive in, I want to go over exactly what we're going to do today. We're going to make it so that in Odoo, you have the same profit and loss by month, the same balance sheet by month, and in the next video, we will go over how to get your aged payables and aged receivables in, and all that will work together beautifully. I'm going to be demonstrating this with QuickBooks Online, but the process and the principles applied here should be applicable to any accounting system you're coming from. And if you were hoping for me to go over getting your sales and purchasing history in, I'm sorry, I'm not covering that in this video, but if you guys want a video like that, go ahead and say that in the comments below. So I'm currently using QuickBooks Online test account so that I don't have to use anybody's information and possibly expose them to any risk here during the deep dive. The only annoying thing about this is that somebody else may be using it at the same time, so hopefully we won't get any bleed over from transactions happening while I'm pulling the data, but we're ready for that. So we're going to want to pull several reports so that we know we're accurate. The first one is going to be in our profit and loss. We're going to make sure and grab all dates for this, and we want to see each column or each month represented as a column. Go ahead and run your report. Now that we got that, let's go ahead and download this to a very safe space. I like to export to Excel just so I can use this later. So we're going to say profit and loss by month, and then just give a date for this too. Okay, now let's go back into reports and let's do the same thing for our balance sheet. So going into balance sheet, we're going to say all dates. We're going to give a month total. Go ahead and run that report and export to Excel. So we'll just say balance sheet by month, 10/21/24. Next, we're going to scroll down and grab our aged receivable aging summary. Make sure that's as of today, 10/21. This looks good. I'm good with all this. Go ahead and run that report. And let's download this to Excel. So we're going to say AR aging, and it's going to be 10/21/24. Now let's do the same thing for our accounts payable aged summary. Let's look for that guy real quick. So what you owe, there we go. Make sure it's as of today. This looks all good. Make sure and run that report. It's all good. Export to Excel. And we're just going to say AP aging. So that's all the summary level reports we want to run so that we can tie out to this, making sure that Odoo is good and the detail that we're going to pull is good. So now we want to grab our detail. We're going to come into our reports, scroll all the way down, and go to transaction detail by account. Once we're here, let's go to group by. We want to remove account. We don't really want that group by. And let's make sure the report period is all dates here. We also want to go in and make sure that we've got the correct columns. So accounts important, date, transaction type, number, name, memo description, full name, amount, balance. We definitely want a few more here. So scrolling down through, there may be some stuff that you guys really want. I like account type. That helps me with some stuff. I want to make sure I have the credit, customer, make sure I have the debit. Customer full name can be useful. Due date can be useful. Don't need employee or full name. Don't need any of the modification information. Open balance can be useful here too. Product or service is good. Quantity, rate, service date, don't really need that. SKU, don't really need that. Tax amount can be useful for looking back, and then vendor can be good, and transaction type is also good. Now you may be wondering why I didn't just select all of the columns. Well, a lot of you are going to have way more data than I have, and the less columns you have, the less polls you need to make. I'm going to be able to pull this in one poll, but if you have more data, it's going to cut it off at the bottom, which is a big reason why we tie out our data after we pull it out. So make sure that you only grab the columns that you need. Anything else is just going to make this take longer. So now I'm going to refresh the report so that it pulls in all of those columns here. You see we've got a lot more at this point. And once I've done that, I can go ahead and export this to Excel. And we're going to say this is our accounting or journal item detail is a better way to describe that. And it's going to be 10/21/24. Now go ahead and open up the journal item detail. I want to make sure you check something to make sure that you've got all of your data. So if we go to our first column here and press Control down, what we want to look for is little totals in this last row and a little merged row down here that tells us when this was run and on what basis it was run. If you don't have all those things, you don't have all your data, whether QuickBooks told you it or not. So you're going to have to try and pull this out year by year or possibly month by month if you're a really big company. We also need to pull our account list so that we have that and so that it makes some of our tasks here a little bit easier. So we're going to add account, refresh that report, go ahead and export to Excel and grab that account list 10/21/24. Okay, now we've got pretty much everything we need to get started. So make sure you got your journal item detail open, and we're going to say this is our financial import 10/21/24. You can call it what you want, but that's what I like to call it. And we're going to call this QuickBooks detail or QB's detail. Let's get rid of this top section here. We only need the headers. So we're going to come in and say 4 through 1. Go ahead and right click and delete. Come down to the bottom. We definitely don't need these totals here or that little merged cell. So go ahead and delete. Now go ahead and open up your account list. We're going to dump that in here real quick. So we're going to grab all of this. We don't need the little summary information there. Go ahead and copy that. Bring it across to our financial import here. Paste that in. Make it look a little bit nicer here. Let's go ahead and rename this accounts. And then we're going to add one more tab. And we're going to call this account type matrix. We're going to use this to make it so that we can make our P&L on our balance sheet real quick. So come over to accounts. We're going to grab B2 and Control Shift and the down arrow and copy. Going to paste that over here. Call this account type. Select all of A, go to data, remove duplicates so we only get one of each type. I'm going to spread that out and make this a little bit nicer. It's a bit tight, but whatever. And then we're going to say financial report. And then we're going to put these in the financial reports we want them in. So I went ahead and zoomed in and then I filled this out so that it makes it easier for you. Let's go ahead and add our report type to our account matrix here. So we're going to use VLOOKUP. Go to account type here. Grab it over here. Make sure to press F4 so that it's absolute. Grab the second column, and we're going to say this is an exact match. And look at that. That works pretty well. Now, let's go ahead and set up our account type on our detail here. So we're going to say VLOOKUP. Lookup value is going to be way over here. Now, if your account is blank, don't worry. Sometimes that happens. As long as the amount is 0, you're going to be just fine. So let's grab this right here. Grab all that. Press F4. We're going to make sure that the column that we want is the correct one here. So got 1, 2. So that's for our account type and false. That didn't come through properly because we don't have an account here, but pulling it down a bit, let's see. Looks just fine there. Now let's grab our report type. So looking over again, we want that to be on account. Going to come over here to our accounts. Grab all of this. Okay. And we're going to say that we want to obviously make this absolute. And then our column index is going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay. And then false. And we're going to bring all these down and make sure we don't have a lot of issues. So looking at that, looking pretty clean. Now you may be wondering why the heck we're doing all this. Well, it's because it's important for us to tie out this data before we import it into Odoo. We want to make sure that we've got everything here. So now we're going to use what's called a pivot table. So we're going to go to cell A1, go to Insert, Pivot Table. It should automatically select everything. We're going to click OK, and we're going to start building this out. So first things first, we're going to add a filter on this. So report type, this is going to be our profit and loss. So we only want stuff that's for the profit and loss. Then we're going to come into this and say, okay, I want to see account type so that we can go off of that. And looking at that, I already had account type. So sorry guys, that's work that you probably didn't need to do there. Looks like we've got accounts receivable in here for some reason, so we'll need to clean that up, but we'll get there. We're going to go to account, and then we want to see our amount here, which should be a combination of debit and credit. We're going to make sure that that's sum right there. I want to go ahead and add our date as a column, and we're going to try and group that by month. It's not letting me group it, so we're going to go back to our QuickBooks detail. I'm going to insert in a column. We're going to call this true date, and it's going to be equals date value of this. Okay. And that should let us group on that. If we go back here and go to refresh, if I throw in true date, hopefully that'll let us group it real quick. And look, yep, that's just fine. So we're going to say that, and because you guys likely have more than a year, we're going to go to group and say we want months and years here, just to make our lives easier. Now, obviously, I've got a problem here with accounts receivable, so we need to go back to our account type matrix, and I threw that in profit and loss for some reason, which is not where it belongs. We're going to come back here and refresh, and now that's gone. All right, so now we want to look at what we're expecting to see. So we're going to say expected, and then we're going to say difference, okay? And this is where our export is going to come in handy. So we're going to say difference would be B28 minus this. Let's bring that all the way over. And let's go back to our income statement that we exported and pull what we're expecting to see here. So I got my profit and loss open, and let's go back to this real quick in our financial import and make sure we're starting in May with no months missing, so that makes it a little bit easier. So we're going to go down here, May starts here. I'm going to go ahead and copy that over, bring it over here to expected, just paste those in, and it looks like we're off a little bit here. Now we're not going to throw up our hands and give up. We're going to dig in and figure out what's going on here. So let's look at our detail, because we know we pulled this, and it's likely that some stuff is getting stuck in these NAs right here. So I'm going to go in here, and I'm expecting not to see any NAs where the account is actually filled in. So you can see I've got quite a few where I've actually still got an NA. So if we look for fuel over in accounts, let's find that. It's an automobile : fuel. But over here is fuel, and that's really what I want to be looking for here. So let's look at our lookups here. We're okay to look up off this account, but be careful. Obviously, you want to make sure this is accurate. But when we go into accounts, what we really want to be looking at here is we want to be looking at this F column here instead of A. So let's go ahead and use index here. So we're going to say index, and we want to get our value from the account type, so B. And we're going to match to find our row. So our lookup value we'll grab in a second, but we're going to look up on column F. Let's go ahead and make these absolute here so that makes my life easier. And we're going to say that this needs to be an exact match here. So looking at this, I need to go all the way over to account. And yep, go ahead and accept the change. And we're looking pretty good there. In fact, I'm pretty sure we should have a lot less NAs. So let's go and check that real quick. Yep, only one. And it's that top one right there when there's no count at all. Let's fix our report type too. So B, all that stuff. I want to keep this absolute as well, or at least partially absolute. I want to keep it in column A. I'm going to copy this across. Report type, we want that to be column G. So the only thing that we need to change here is get away from B, go to G, come down, and that should be a lot cleaner too. Let's just double check that. So looking at this, it should only have one A and one NA, and it looks like we're good. Let's go back to our P&L here and refresh and see if that fixed our problem. So it looks like we've got more data, which already is a good thing. We lost our expected because the pivot table ran right over it. So we need to rebuild that real quick. Quick aside here, just because this is something that I'm sure you'll see a lot if you're moving from one system to another. If you're doing this yourself, if you're getting frustrated, take a breath, take a break. This sort of thing happens all the time moving from one system to another. So I found the issue and I'm going to show you how to fix it. But the biggest thing here is don't give up. You can do this. We can tie out this data. We can get it into Odoo. It's just going to take a bit more time. So we're facing several things here. So first off, we're going to rebuild our amount. We're going to insert a column right here. Okay, and put in, and we'll call this true amount just to differentiate it. And we're going to take this garbage right here, copy it, find it, replace it with nothing so that we can actually use our formulas here. Okay, get a true amount. So we're going to say for this, it is debit minus credit, which is actually going to be the opposite for our P&L, but we'll be fine there. So fixing our amount actually gets us right. We're just on the wrong side of the sign. So let's go ahead and add these because our amount is actually the way that our balance sheet is. But the big problem that actually came up when we were looking at amounts is that these expenses or these account names are not unique. So if we look at accounts and, for example, we look at our job materials, plants and soil, if I come up here and we're going to go ahead and filter this, if I were to just go off of this for my account name, plants and soil, I've got two different accounts that actually are called this, but their full name, this one, job expenses, job materials, plants and soil, is different. Now, if we were just to ignore this, that would be a big problem inside of Odoo because we're combining an expense account and an income account, and whether the signs were correct or not, our P&L is really not going to make sense at that point. And yeah, I could complain about QuickBooks and how they should have a unique identifying number at the front of an account, which you're required to do inside of Odoo, but that doesn't do us any good. So let's find a solution for this. So thankfully, from what I'm seeing, this additional name is actually just unique within an account type. And if you remember, we actually pulled our account type with our journal item detail, which is super helpful. So we're actually going to insert a new column here. Okay, and we're going to call this account lookup. That's going to help us here, and we're going to add a new one here called true account name. So our account lookup is going to be this guy, our account, and our account type, which is over here. And I don't care about the spaces. I know it's kind of ugly, but that's okay. So if we look at this, we're going to get payable AP and some other stuff over here, which is totally fine. Let me expand this so it actually looks nice. And then our true account name, we're going to get by coming over to accounts, and we're going to give ourselves another lookup here. So this is going to be account lookup, and that's going to be equals this full name, or not full name, this name, and the account type. Going to pull that all the way down, and then we're going to go into here and we're going to do an index again. So the index, we want to pull the actual full name that's right here. Going to hit F4, so that's absolute, and then we're going to match and look up value, not just yet, but we're going to look up in here. We want an exact match. Yes, except the correction, I forgot a parentheses. And we're going to say this is that, which again, we've got that one line that just doesn't like to play nice. But you can see now we've got our true account name, which is going to help us out quite a bit. We do need to fix our account type and everything real quick. So looking at our account lookup, we're going to say, actually, we're going to look up off of our little guy right here. And we're going to be looking in, let me look real quick. We're going to be looking in H instead, just to make sure that this is all accurate. Whoop. Go ahead and grab that. H, pull that down. We're going to copy this across and make sure we get this. So it's H, going to G. Pull that down. Port type, we've got a bunch of NAs, so we need to look at that. What's going on with you? So we're looking off of Z2, and we're looking in H. Oh, that's our problem. Shouldn't be Z, it should be Y. Does that fix us up? That does fix us up. Let's go ahead and refresh this again. real quick and make sure we're good. So we want this to be profit and loss, everything here. And now we need to add our expected and our difference. And will you look at that? That's much, much, much better. Not only do we tie at the bottom, but our accounts are all in the correct area here. Now, again, I probably could have skipped all of this and not shown you how I cleaned this up and not shown you how I got this to tie out. But again, imports can be an extremely frustrating process. And so I wanted to show you what I stepped through to find out what's going on, how to fix it, and to move forward, because really that's what you'll need to be able to do. Okay, now let's get our balance sheet, which is super easy. So we're going to move and copy, create a copy. Going to rename this balance sheet. Whoop, balance sheet. And we're going to just change this filter up top to balance sheet. Click OK. Okay, now we need to pull over our net income, because you can see our balance sheet, normally we would expect to zero out, but we need to bring in our current earnings. So we're going to say the difference is right here. So net income, we don't have any for April. So we're just going to put that in as 0 because we didn't account for that in our profit and loss. But we're going to bring this over, and this is 91.25 over here. And so we're going to say equals this minus the 28. Oops, not equals, minus. And we're going to come across, and we're going to come across. And it looks like, oop, not that across, this across. It looks like we tie out fully, which is a great relief. So yes, the tie out can be a bit of a bear, but we did it. And now we can move on to setting up our import and getting things into Odoo. So let's dig into it. So now let's prep our trial balance import. That's basically just saying we're doing the import that'll make the profit and loss and the balance sheet correct month by month. So here we go. Let's grab a new tab. We're going to call this trial balance import. Journal item level. Oh, can't do that. We'll say TB import journal item. Okay, so what we need here is we need all of the months represented and all of the accounts on that month represented. Let's try and make this easy on ourselves. So we're going to insert right here, and we're going to give ourselves a month end column. So with this, we're going to say equals date, and we're going to grab the year from our true date, the month from our true date, and add 1 to that. And then we're going to go to the first of that month. And then, of course, -1. So that should give us the month end for each one of these dates. You see this is 8/27/2024. We end up with 8/31/2024. Let's go ahead and bring that down all the way. Now we're going to take these guys right here, copy them, and we're going to move over to the TB import journal item. Going to go ahead and insert these copied cells. Oh, need to do paste special values. Otherwise, you're going to end up with a lot of junk. And we're going to remove any duplicates that we have here so that we only have these represented once. And click OK. Now we're going to add another column called amount. And we're going to see what these guys have. So we're going to say equals SUMIFS. And the sum range is going to be inside of QuickBooks detail. It's going to be this true amount here. Criteria range 1 is going to be our true account name. And then criteria range 2 is going to be our month end. Going to go ahead and close that up, and then go ahead and fill these guys in here to make my life easier. And let's see what we got. So looking at this, the sum at the bottom should be 0, which you can see that's in scientific notation. So we actually are zeroed out, so we're pulling in everything here. All right, let's make this look a little bit nicer. So we're going to select all this, go to data, filter, and we're going to sort by month end. So we're going to sort oldest to newest, and we'll do some checks in a second here. But really what we need is our debit and our credit at this point. So we're going to say equals if this is greater than 0, then it's going to be this, otherwise 0. And conversely, equals if this is less than 0, then We're going to have 0 for, oh, then we're going to have this amount and 0. And let's go ahead and do that. And just off to the side, we're going to do debit, credit, just to make sure this all ties out nicely. So debit, yes, equals sum for the credit as well. This plus this. Oh, and we actually did something wrong because it should be equals this minus that. That's not a good thing. So we're going to say it's negative C2 if that's the case. And that is very, very, very nice. Okay, so now we're moving on to our journal entries. Create a new tab for TB import journal entry. And hopefully you can see this all right, but if not, I'm going to zoom in just real quick. So the name, we are going to get a name from here. So we're going to say trial balance import 4. And then we're going to do this. And it's going to be this value right here. Month, day, year. Obviously, you guys can change that up if it's different for you. Go ahead and accept that. So that's going to be the journal entry. And bring this down. Going to go ahead and copy this across. Get our name. Going to remove any duplicates so that we only get this. Okay. Click OK. We've only got, what, 7 journal entries, which is totally fine. But now we're going to get our date, which I could have done more easily, but we're just going to do 4-30, 5-31, 6-30, 31, 8-31, 9-30, and 10-31. Make that a short date. And then our journal is just going to be historical entries. And then we are just going to do a quick check where we say equals sum if, and the range is going to be right here. And criteria is going to be back over there. And we want to do the debits first. So let's grab this guy. It's all our debits. And we want to make sure our debits offset our credits perfectly. So we're going to just copy this sum if. And the sum range is going to be, I believe, at this point, E. And we need to bring that up, actually. So it looks like all of our journal entries tie out. That is excellent news. Okay. So now we're ready to start some imports. We first need to import our chart of accounts. Otherwise, when we're referring to the account, it's going to say it doesn't exist. So we need to make sure that our chart of accounts lines up inside of Odoo. So we need to make sure that we have an account type that matches up. So looking at Odoo here, we have all of our types. Let's go into developer mode. Make sure that we're good. And this can take a second, so yeah, we're going to have to go ahead and build this out real quick. For this, I would recommend, if you have 2 screens, to have your account type matrix in Excel on one side and your Odoo instance on the other side so that you can compare the two and work through this really quickly. If you want to copy mine, it's not going to hurt my feelings. You can go ahead and pause and steal all this for yourself. You may notice that I added this order and starting number here. The reason for that is because we're going to need codes to be able to import this in Odoo, and our example data doesn't have codes for its accounts. Okay, so let's go ahead and fill out all this information. So type is going to be VLOOKUP, and the lookup value is going to be our account type. So that guy right there, and we're going to grab it from account type matrix, and our type in Odoo is going to be that 3rd column and false. So we've got payable there. Then we're going to get our code. So our code is actually going to be a concatenation here. So we really need our order first. Now let's add a prefix just to make this easier. So we're going to take this guy right here, copy all of that, go ahead and drop that in. And we're going to say our starting number. It's going to be that E, so that's number 5. Okay, prefix is 16. That's going to help us get this code. So let's drop this down here. Now I'm going to grab another column here, and I'm going to call it end number. I know that could be suffix, but that's not really what this is right here. So I created a formula here that basically what it does is it looks for any accounts above it that have the same prefix. If there are ones above it, it looks for the highest one and then adds 10 to that end number, so that we should end up with very unique end numbers here relative to the prefix. Now let's put our code together. So looking at Odoo real quick, we have a 6-digit code, so we're going to go with a 5-digit so that we don't have any crossover. So we're going to go with equals this and a 0 and this. And that gives us our nice unique code for our account. And we really didn't need this order, so I'm going to go ahead and delete that. Now let's go ahead and import our accounts. So we're going to go to import. We're going to go to import COA, a little bit different depending on your version of Odoo. Let's go to upload data file, choose our data file here, go to the right sheet, which is accounts. We've got a ton of stuff in here now. I'm going to get rid of type right here, and we're going to make sure we have our code, our account, which is the name right here, account name. And then that type should actually be the type inside of Odoo. So we'll grab that and let's see how this goes. Looks like we got in just fine. Oh, and we want another account real quick here. We're going to call it 99999. That's 5. And this is going to be AR/AP clearing. And I'll show you how we're going to use that in just a second here. Put that in equity and go ahead and save that. All right, I know this is a long process. I promise you I'm feeling pretty tired too. So let's get in those journal entries, and then we'll come back next week and we'll get our accounts receivable and accounts payable in. So let's go back to our guy right here for journal items, and we're going to call this Odoo account. We need to go to accounts, and we want to make sure that this is represented correctly. So we're going to put this over here, Odoo account, and it's going to be equals our code and a space and our little full name over here should give us what we want. All right, now let's pull that in. So VLOOKUP, it's going to be off of our true account name, going back to accounts. We're going to grab this whole thing right here, which is 13 columns. So we're going to be looking for the 13th column and grab that in, which is looking pretty darn sharp, except for this NA, which we don't need anyway. And yeah, that's looking good. Now it's time to go into Odoo, and we're going to build out our import framework here. So we're going to go to accounting. We're going to go to accounting journal entries, and it really doesn't matter where you go for this, but we do want to get to Studio. We're going to go to edit menu. We're going to create a new menu, and this is going to be journal entry import. It's not an existing model. We'll go through and just leave everything in there. We're going to go to a new menu, and this is going to be journal item import, and this is not going to be an existing model either. Go ahead and confirm those, edit menu, and I'm going to throw these down into, under management. If you want to stick them somewhere else, that's totally up to you, and I'm not going to fault you for it. So coming down, go to configuration and go to our journal entry import. So we need, real quick, our journal item name, our date, and our journal. So we'll change this description to name. Works for the use here. So we're going to say name, and then we're going to add a date. Call it date. Novel idea there. And then we're going to add a many to one for our journal. And we're going to call that journal as well. So let's go to journal, and that should be good for right now. Now let's come down and go to our journal item import. For this, we don't really need a name, so we're going to make sure that this isn't required. Otherwise, it causes some problems for us. So we're going to save that. go back to our list view. Don't really care about that. So we're going to throw in a many to one, and this is going to be our account, which is right there. Name it account. Then we want to add in our float fields for debit and credit. So this is going to be debit. And then we're going to add in another float field for credit. And now we want to make sure that this is tied to one of our journal entries. So it's going to be that journal entry import right there, because that is important. Now let's go back to our journal entry import, and we're just going to add that one to many real quick over here to just represent those journal items so that we're good there. So we're going to call those journal items. Lastly, we're going to add something in here that makes it easier for us to know what's imported properly and what hasn't. So we're going to look at the actual journal entry that gets created from this journal entry import. And that way we have that going forward. Okay, we're finally getting to that critical moment where we can import this stuff. So let's import this, and then we'll do the code that pushes it into the rest of Odoo. So you want to go to your journal entries first, and we're going to go to import records, upload data file, financial import 10/21/24. Okay, and we've got name, date, journal. Oop, we need to create that journal. So let's go ahead and duplicate that and go to configuration, journals, a new one. And this is going to be historical entries. Type is going to be miscellaneous, and the short code is going to be QB, just to make this easy for us. So go ahead and save that and come back. This should all be good. Let's import this. Looks like we got all of the top level entries here. The only other thing that we need to do real quick is we need to make sure that our accounts receivable and accounts payable are going to our 9999 account. Now, the main reason that we're doing this is because we're going to do a separate import for all of our active balances for accounts receivable and accounts payable. That's to say, anything where we owe somebody money or somebody owes us money, we want to have that represented. But if we're bringing it in here and we bring it in somewhere else, we need to have a way to clean that up and make sure that we're not duplicating expenses and we're not duplicating income. So whether you fully understood that or not, we need to come into this and we need to go into here. We're going to go to configuration, chart of accounts. We're going to find our friend Mr. 59s and go here. Okay, and let's go into view so we can get this full name so that we can pull it properly. Go ahead and copy that, and we're going to paste it right here so that all of our stuff going to AR and AP for our journal items actually goes to the AR and AP clearing. Make sure and save your spreadsheet real quick, but after that, come back in, go to configuration, journal item import, and we're going to go to import records, upload data file, go to financial import 1021, and we are going to select our TP import journal item. So we've got our debit, our credit. We want Odoo account to be the account. So debit, credit, journal entry is going to be our friend Mr. Journal entry import. Okay. And then it looks like the rest of this should be good. So we're going to import that. And it looks we got 96 of these in successfully. It's always good to just kind of check and see what we expected to come in. So looking at this, we have 97 rows, including our headings, so that's 96 records. Okay, now for some code, and we are getting super close now. So go ahead and go to server actions out here. Make sure you're in debug mode or else you won't be able to see it. And we're going to say push journal entry import. And we're going to execute some code here, and it's going to be on our journal entry import model. All right, so this is the code that we want. I'll go ahead and copy this and make sure that it's in the description below. And yes, you guys may have been wondering, but I am going to take this example Excel and I will stick that as a link in the description as well so that you can use that as reference. So we don't need to spend a lot of time on this, but if you want to look real quick, so essentially I'm saying for each one of these line items, what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a little variable called journal lines. And for each line inside of here, so for each of these 2 or 7 or whatever, I'm going to go ahead and create a little line in that variable. And then I'm going to create a new journal entry for each one of these records. And inside of that, we're going to set the date according to this, journal according to that, reference according to the name that we have here. And then the line IDs are going to be all the journal lines that we've created. And the name is going to be false because we're going to let Odoo assign that. And then we're going to go ahead and post that new journal entry. And then once we're all done with that, we're going to set that journal entry right here. So let's create that contextual action. Go ahead and refresh right here, and let's try this out. So select all these, go to Actions, and push Journal Entry Import, and it looks like everything worked out just beautifully. And now for the last piece to this part, we need to check that our financial statements inside of Odoo tie out to what we were seeing in QuickBooks. So let's go to Reporting. We're going to go to Profit and Loss. We're going to go to Month. And it's just going to be, let's see, what was our latest month inside of this? So if we go to Profit and Loss, our latest month was October. So let's come back to this, make sure the month is October. Go to Comparison, Previous Period. We're going to go ahead and drop in 7 periods, I think is what we had here. And let's see what we've got. So you obviously can't see both my screens, but going through and looking at the net profit and going through and spot checking this, I can see that everything came through beautifully. You did it. It's amazing. You may feel like you just ran a marathon. I know that I do. So next time we're going to go over aged payables and aged receivables and getting those in correctly. You'll see how that AP clearing account works for us. It really works beautifully. As always, if you have any questions, please drop them in the comments below or grab some time with me on my calendar, which for those of you that have been asking about it, I am working on moving over to Odoo. Thanks again for tuning in, and we'll see you again soon to finish this off.